I wonder how many paint markers that is altogether. 36, 42, 62, 86, 98, 116, 140, 152, 158, 166, 176, and over 200 paint markers. Ooh, that's a lot. If you're my husband and watching this, I know that's a lot of markers, but I'll put them to good use, I promise. So we really need to get cracking on this thing. This is a lot of markers to get through. I really want to test these out for you guys and for myself to let you know what's a great, cheaper alternative than the good old POSCA pen. I love POSCA pen, especially after last week's video where I tested out the Crayola paint pens and they were absolute trash. Hated them, didn't like them. Don't think I'll ever use them again unless I'm really desperate, which don't think I'm going to be desperate for paint pens anytime soon. But yeah, using those paint pens has just really shown me what the bottom line is. And I'm hoping every single one of these brands are going to do better than Crayola. Keeping in mind that Crayolas were more expensive than any of these. So my POSCAs, I do buy them locally. I like to shop locally if I can. And they can cost me about $5 per marker. If I buy them as a pack online from Amazon, they work out at about $3.30 per marker. So I've used that pricing. Each of these other brands are going to be less than $3.30 per marker. But for now, I'm going to stop waffling on and get cracking on this.
So let's kick off this review with the first set of brush pens by Artistro. I've heard of Artistro before. I believe they have a good reputation, so I was keen to use these markers. This pack of 16 markers include 8 classic and 8 metallic colours, and of all the sets has the nicest packaging. I tried to prime these like I would a typical paint pen, but there's no ball bearing, so I just gave them a really good shake, and seems the nibs are already wet, I started using them. The colours are nice and bright, but the classic colours are not completely opaque on the black paper. However, the metallics do work really well on the black. The white, on the other hand, was terrible, and I tried drawing for a while off camera to get the paint flowing better, but nothing helped. On the white paper, the standard colours looked really nice. Some of the colour tips seemed a bit dried, and it took some work to get them going. On canvas, they're really enjoyable to use. They work well, the barrels are comfortable to hold, but that white still sucks. I was also a bit bummed this pack had no purple or pink. Now, in order to rate these paint markers in an organised manner, I will give each set a score out of 5 for each surface I test them on. Then, a score for their value for money, the range of nibs, the colours the brand offers, plus the overall use of the pen. I would have given these markers a 4 out of 5 for both canvas and paper, but because the white is so rubbish, I dropped it back to 3. The other brush marker I'll be trying today is by Artship. The packaging is nowhere near as nice as the Artistro, but the barrels have a similar look and comfortable feel to them. And likewise, there is no ball bearing for mixing the paint and the nib is wet. But that's where the similarities stop. The Artship nib is longer and thinner, acting more like a paintbrush in my opinion, and the colours laid down bright and opaque, but again, a couple of the colours are a little clogged and the metallic blue has a weird fuzz growing on it. The markers have a nice result on both the white and black paper. Here's a little comparison to the Artistro, and I've got to give the extra point to Artship for this one. The colours are just more opaque and have a more even result. On canvas, again, they are enjoyable to use, the colours mix well when still wet, and I'm really enjoying using these markers. I think I like painting with these and the Artistro so much because of the brush nib. This set of markers came in a pack of 20 with 10 classic and 10 metallic colours. I like the colours better in this set of brush markers, however, they did cost me more, with the Artistros costing about $1.94 per marker and the Artships $2.38. And I'll just quickly mention, all these prices are in Australian dollars. The first of the fine nib markers I'm testing are by Anko and can be found in the kids' toy section at Kmart in Australia. These markers only come in a fine nib and include 10 pens. Let's start off with the positive for these markers. They are the cheapest of the bunch at $6.50. That's only 65 cents per marker. And their clear barrel is convenient, as I can see when it is mixed thoroughly. These do appear good at first, but these are a marker I've used a few months ago, and I've noticed the markers I've already used, the nibs have dried out on them and have to be revived. I know this can happen with paint markers, but I will say, to date, I've never had a POSCA dry out on me. And a big no-no for me is there is no white. I can't even fathom that a company would not include a white in a packet of paint markers. On the canvas, I've tried to draw something that will work with the ultra-fine tip. I've coloured the smaller circled areas, but for the bigger areas I've done a fine compacted scribble. They are a bit scratchy due to the ultra hard nib, which makes them splatter a little on the rough surface. You really need to work with the grain of the nib by laying it down on an angle on rougher surfaces. The next fine nib marker are these 18 pack by Flysea. Ugh, I hate it when they're individually wrapped. Just let me do that 17 more times. There is a good colour selection in this pack with 7 classic, 6 pastels, a brown, black, white, plus 2 metallics. They have a nice weight to the barrel and, like the Anko, mix and prep easily. They feel nice on the page and have good coverage. But again, like the Anko, the paint can splatter a little as you use them. When I get to the canvas and they again feel like the Anko with paint splattering due to the extra hard nib, it dawns on me to compare the barrels of the two. And we definitely have some similarities. The main thing is the Flysea have a more thoughtful colour selection, but are more expensive than the Anko at $1.61 per marker. The last fine tip markers I have are by Newtop. I think that's how it's pronounced. In a basic box is a beautiful selection of 24 true pastel colours. Again, we have a very similar barrel to Anko, a near on exact to the Flysea. The clear barrel allows for easy mixing and the pens work and flow well. Even though the colours are very pale, they are nice and opaque. Still have that hard scratchy nib like the Anko and Flysea. I seriously think I'm dealing with 3 different brands all using the same barrel and nib, but maybe different paint? Can't say for sure. At $1.89 per marker, these are the most expensive of the fine tips. Heading into the medium nib markers, we have another really cheap set by Anko. But the difference between these and the fine nib Ankos is these are in the general art and craft section, not the kids' toy section. The paint is opaque but not consistent, even though I thoroughly shook them. The nibs are also inconsistent, but are decent enough to use. Like the Anko Kids, this pack has no white, which I really hate, and I'm not really enjoying using them. So I rushed through the canvas artwork, which looks so terrible, it's just such a shame that I lost the video footage. Next up, we have the Boyle markers that I purchased from Bunnings. For my non-Aussie viewers, Bunnings is a hardware superstore that you can also buy craft products from and get yourself a sausage sizzle for lunch on your way out. This 6-pack of pastel markers weren't cheap at $2.50 per marker, so I was feeling hopeful that they would be decent, but these seem to be the worst so far. From the get-go, they are very different to your average marker, as the packet tells you to store them upright, cap down. There is no ball bearing to mix the paint, and they feel more like a water-based ink marker rather than paint, and only 3 of the 6 colours look truly pastel. Onto the canvas, and they really are terrible markers. They are so streaky even after several coats, and terribly watery. I really am not convinced these are paint. Maybe there is good paint somewhere in the barrel, but it's just not making its way to the nib. And I don't want to spend all day using them just to wait for the paint to come through. I truly don't want to keep using these. They get a rating of awful on both paper and canvas. Another brand I'm feeling hopeful for are these 12-pack of Mont Marte. The reason I'm hopeful is I do use quite a bit of Mont Marte products, as they are affordable and generally decent quality. Oh bugger, more individual wrapping. In my opinion, I think the colours are nice that have been included, especially the light green and blue. The clear barrel is convenient and they have a good weight to them. The colours are coming out bright and opaque, and that white is excellent. Now I can't claim to be creating masterpieces on these canvases, as I have 12 of them to get through, but I do want to get a good feel for them and see which markers I actually enjoy using. And these Mont Martes are enjoyable, regardless of my dodgy looking flowers. They are opaque with nice colours, but the nibs are a little bit too hard, and the green seems to be clogging up a bit. Overall, so far, I'm happy enough with them, and at $2 per marker, they leave those rubbish Boyles in the dust. On to the Tooli Art 36 pack of earth and skin colours. These are the first set of markers I've had that are numbered and named. Oh, and spare nibs. How thoughtful. I'm a little excited at this range of markers. Just look at them. So satisfying. The barrels are a good weight and have a little viewing window. I'm looking back on my notes I made when swatching out the colours, and my first comment was, wow. Just wow! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. They have great opaqueness and the colours are divine on paper. By the time I got using these on the canvas, I realised they have the same barrel as the Mont Marte, and the nibs feel similar, if not exactly the same. The paint needs a really thorough mixing, more so than most of the others, and several coats were needed to stop the image looking streaky on the canvas. But still, I'm super happy with these markers and give them a 5 on paper and a 4 on canvas. Next up are a 12 pack of Toyo paint markers, and I'm surprised to find that they are a metal barrel. It was a bit weird, and they reminded me of something my dad used to use in his shed, so I inspected the box and find they are not acrylic at all, but oil-based markers. But I was sure I'd ordered the acrylic, so do a quick check, and yep, they've sent me the wrong kind. Oh well, the little blighters are here and opened, may as well carry on with them. After swatching, I'm finding them very inconsistent. Some colours are nice, and others look like they just don't belong. Plus, the paint looks blotchy. But worst of all, they stink. Bad. Like real bad. On canvas, I'm still not a fan. I've spent so long shaking these and the paint coming out is still not mixed and really annoying. They are not enjoyable to use and the stink is so bad I don't want to keep using them. Our last cheaper alternative to the POSCA is this 24 pack by Magi. The box has arrived a little banged up, but I won't hold it against them. Now, I bought these for one reason, and that is the 3 nib size in one marker. On one end we have the fine nib, and on the other is a medium nib that you can change out to a chisel tip. These markers are really comfortable to hold, much like an alcohol marker, and at $2.47 for 3 sizes per colour, I think that represents good value for money. Wow, I thought they might be gimmicky with the reversible nibs, but so far so good. Colours are great, I like the variety of shades, they are going down mostly opaque, and the barrels just feel nice. But I do tend to favour a thicker girth barrel in my hand. Please don't take that out of context. Getting into this canvas test, and they really are enjoyable to use. The medium nib reminds me of the POSCA nibs in that there is a little give. Most of the other medium nib markers I've used today have been super hard, and I just find a tiny bit of softness right on the tip is easier to work with. Why does that still sound so wrong? Anyway, the colours are going down with ease and having the fine tip at the other end of the marker is so convenient. I'm giving these markers a score of 4 for paper and 5 on the canvas. On to the POSCA. I'm not going to go into these too much. The main colours I own are the pastel versions. Surprisingly, they didn't show up as opaque as the Tooli Art on the black card. Creating with these on the canvas is familiar and enjoyable. I love the colours, they are opaque, don't take much to mix the colours, and that nib is comfortable to work with. For the paper, I give them a 4 out of 5, and on canvas, I give them a full 5 marks. The next surface I want to test is glass. I'm just going to go through and quickly do a cross hatch on the surface. I really just want to see if the paint sticks to the glass, how opaque and uneven they are, and to see if the paint lifts off when the marker runs back over the paint. I'm getting some mixed results. The Tooli Art and POSCA still reign supreme as they are opaque and have nice even colours. Bottoming out in this test, not surprisingly, is the Boyle with its still very watery paint. The Toyo is pulling away from the glass around the edges, and I'm sorry to say, the Mont Marte and Artistro are streaky, with colour pooling in different areas. A real surprise in this test was the Anko, with a nice even coverage, and the ANKO KIDS, which performed the best when it came to the scratch test. For the fabric test, I'm going to draw some paint drips on a blank apron. I'm very pleased to say all the markers performed quite well. Artship had a bit of a struggle, and I thought it was because a brush nib might not work as well on the fabric surface, but then Artistro did much better. POSCA, Magi and Tooli did the best, and even the rubbish Boyle did a fine job. The stinky Toyo was the only one to bleed along the edges. The fine nibbed markers did struggle to go down on this surface, but that's not their fault. Once finished, I gave this apron a full cold wash cycle to see how the paint would hold up, and see for yourself. I'm very pleased. I'll try and get a little creative with this next test on ceramic. I've chosen a bare ceramic, and I'm a bit nervous as when I use the Crayolas on this surface, it stopped the markers working. All I'm doing is creating a little patch for each brand, then the Fine Nib pens for the details. For this yellow themed pot, I'm using the Boyle, Anko, Artistro, and then the Flysea for the details. The Boyle nib felt nice to use, but looked really streaky after one coat. However, after the second coat, it surprisingly looked really good. The Anko paint seemed to absorb into the ceramic, but after the second coat, it shifted the first dry coat around and looked really patchy. The Artistro was so bright on this surface and looked good. After 3 coats, the Boyle was flawless, Artistro nearly flawless, but the Anko was very temperamental and had to be laid down with a really light hand, and it still looked really patchy. The Flysea worked well on the ceramic. That is, until it got onto the Anko patch and it would pull away. Strange. So I'm giving the Artistro and Boyle a 4, the Flysea a 3, and Anko only gets a 1. Next up is the Montmart, Newtop, Toyo and Artship for the details. The Montmart went down nicely, but was still slightly streaky even after 3 coats, but not too bad. I used the Newtop by using it slightly on the side, avoiding the tip, and it went down fine. However, like the Anko, the paint soaked in so fast and looks streaky even after 3 coats. It's hard to say anything good about the Toyo when it stinks that bad, and it was the streakiest on this purple pot. The Artship performed well over the ceramic and paint surface, even though getting it steady as a fine tip is tricky for these shaky hands. Our last 4 markers are the Magi, POSCA, Tooli Art and ANKO KIDS. POSCA and Magi have similar nibs, so both feel nice and easy to use on all surfaces. They both went down evenly first go, so I only gave them 2 coats with no streaks. The Tooli Art, however, had a hard time, and I put some of that down to the really hard nib. It was still really streaky after 2 coats, so for the 3rd coat I laid it down really thick, which I initially thought had done the trick, but still not completely even. And because I did that really thick 3rd coat, the paint cracked as it dried. If I hadn't been so lazy and done twice as many thinner coats waiting for it to completely dry in between, it would have worked better. Anko KIDS worked well with the line art and no problems going over the whole thing. The super hard nib gives a nice crisp line, but on hard surfaces like this, it can make it a bit tricky to work with. The last test I'm going to do with all these markers are on a surface I enjoy using, and that's wood. And because I do like wood, I want to do some little artworks in my style. But the thing is, I'm not feeling over enthusiastic about using all the brands, so I'll quickly test them out first. Then I'm going to let my creative side freely decide which markers it likes best to make some little artworks. So let's quickly run through these. The Artistro is still letting me down a bit with the opaqueness and that terrible white. Artship on the other hand has vibrant colours all the way. All the fine tips feel scratchy on the wood, but the colours are looking fine. Unfortunately, Boyle just aren't cutting it again. I think the ceramic was its high point. The Mont Marte continued to be just a good all-round marker. The Magi worked well, but the white has stopped working as good as it was. The Tooli Art may have not been great on the ceramic, but on the wood they are doing awesome. They are the kind of marker that make you want to create. And POSCA. Oh, good old POSCA. Once again, they're terrific. For this next bit, I won't be trying to use all of them. Just as I go and get into my groove, we'll see which markers I gravitate towards. I think doing it this way will give me a real sense of which markers I personally like best, and which might just be my new go-to marker. Now, these little characters you can see taking shape are some little mushrooms I created a few videos ago using wooden mushroom blanks, polymer clay and acrylic paint. There were 7 of them in that video, but I might just paint 3 today. Now while I paint, let's discuss these markers and my thoughts and feelings on them. Please note though, I'm not an expert, I'm not an artist, and all my thoughts and opinions on these are just that. They're opinions and may differ from your own. Let's start with what colour range and nibs the brands have to offer. The worst colour range available go to Anko and Anko Kids, with only 10 and no white. Next, with 12 colours available, is Toyo, Mont Marte and Boyle. The Magi have a decent range of colours with 24 in the pack. The brands with a variety of packs in different colours available go to Artistro, Artship and Flysea, with neons, pastels, classics, metallic and glitter options. The Newtop also have a decent range with 24 classic and 24 pastel colours. But the reigning champions is POSCA with over 60 colours and Tooli Art with an amazing range. They have packs of metallics, neons, blues, greys, pinks and reds, greens, essential colours. Seriously, the list goes on. When it comes to the nibs, again, POSCA outdo them all with 9 sizes available, ranging from super fine to big chunky boys. Next down the line is Artistro with 4 nibs, including extra fine, fine, medium and brush. Then we have Maggie with the 3-in-1 nib marker, plus Artship have 3 offering fine, medium and brush. The brands with 2 nibs, being fine and medium, are Montmart, Flysea, Newtop, Tooli Art and Boyle. Lastly, only offering 1 nib are Anko, ANKO KIDS and Toyo. Now let's discuss value for money. Maybe I shouldn't say value for money, as to me value is a product that works well and lasts for a long time. So really it's just rating which is the cheapest and most expensive. The most expensive of course is the POSCA. It's kind of the point of the video, isn't it? Next up with not bad value is the Artship, Magi, Montmart and Toyo, ranging between $2 and $2.50 per marker. Then, ranging from $1.50 to $2 is Flysea, Artistro, Newtop and Boyle. And finally, with a price less than $1.50 per marker are the 2 Anko packs, plus surprisingly the Tooli Art, which only cost $1.36 per marker. To me, that's exceptional value for money. So our last category to get through is the overall use. Things I will be thinking about in this category are how the barrel feels in the hand, how the nibs feel as it runs over the surfaces, if the tips were dry or leaked paint, how hard they were to prep, and just generally how much I enjoyed using them. I think it's safe to say Boyle and Toyo bottom out in this category. In the not great section are the Anko, and ones that are not bad are the 3 fine tips, plus the Artistro. 2 of the brands I really enjoyed and were pleasant to use are Montmart and Tooli Art. But the top 3, obviously POSCA is there with its easy prep and nice nibs. Plus I love the convenience and feel of the 3-in-1 Magi. I also really rate the Artship. That brush tip is just really nice to create with. So, with all the surfaces completed and all the scores tallied up, which marker came out on top? Let's start with the worst performers. The bottom 2 performers go to Toyo with its stinky and inconsistent paint, and Boyle, who just couldn't overcome the problem of paint that won't mix and it comes out watery. Next, with a score of 25 out of a possible 50, is Anko. The nibs were inconsistent and I'm not a fan of the colours. Then we have the good all-rounder brand Montmart, who in most of the categories mainly scored not bads and had a final score of 29. All 3 of the fine nib markers scored within a point of each other, and as fine liners I would recommend Flysea and Newtop. Even though the Anko Kids are a fine marker, I wouldn't buy them again as the set has no white. However, that low price is hard to ignore. With a score of 33 as well is the brush set by Artistro. but Artship kicked its butt with a score of 39. If Artship offered more colours in the brush nib, they would be my new go-to. But I still see myself using these markers a lot. We kick off the top 3 with a new favourite of mine, Magi. Again, if they had a bigger colour range, these would have scored much higher. And second place goes to, drumroll please, Tooli Art. These are a very pleasant marker to use, not quite my favourite, but with its extraordinary colour range and cheap price, it really does deserve its ranking. Which means the top spot, regardless of the fact it's the most expensive, is good old POSCA. It does belong there, and it's still my favourite to use. But it's no longer the only brand I'll use. I think together with the Artship, Tooli Art, Magi, Flysea and Newtop, they were the brands I grabbed for the most when creating my little mushy artworks. I hope this video has helped you guys out. I know it was a long one, but I had a lot to fit in. Anyway, hope to see you next time. Catch you around.